What's up, Wildcats? My name is Josh Morrill. I'm the executive editor here at TNH. This is episode 6 of the TNH Roundup. It is 7:44 p.m. I am joined by...
I'm Anna Kate Muncie, and I'm the managing editor.
I'm Hannah Donahue, and I am the content editor.
And this week, we want to start off by talking about the testing program that UNH has set forth. First with the pre-arrival testing. Today was the last day that you could get tested at Wildcat Stadium. And now it's kind of transitioning to the Whittemore Center, where I think it's just students are allowed to get tested there, right? Because it was students and faculty at the Wildcat Stadium. So now it's just students at the Whittemore Center. You need to register for an appointment. It has to be 2 days in advance, right? And you need to bring a photo ID and a mask. And there's going to be 10 collection kiosks around campus, so look out for those.
Another thing I just kind of wanted to note was that in the email from Police Chief Paul Dean, I believe it was last Friday, kind of laying out the testing plan for the remainder of the semester, he noted that after the things we've talked about, the testing at Wildcat Stadium, which ended today, and then the testing at the Whittemore Center this week, all tests will be self-administered for students for the rest of the semester, which I just thought was interesting. It seemed, I don't want to say fast to me, but I feel like a lot of people are still figuring out what they're doing, and that just seems like, I don't know, it kind of worries me. I'm kind of scared to test myself, but I think there will definitely be a learning curve with that, and with the depositing and all of that. I know it's on a schedule, but I definitely see that as something that will take some getting used to.
Yeah, and I know with some of the tests that I've, been to or I've seen, like some of them, there isn't like enough material on the swab or something, so they have to re-swab it. So I don't know if they'll kind of go through that with us, but that's one thing I'm nervous about, because if you do it wrong and they don't really have the sample to test people, that's the only reservation I have. But I feel like once we get into a groove, I don't think it's going to matter really, because you'll have a sense of what you need to put on and what not. So,
I mean, aside from the learning session that they're doing at the Whittemore Center, in addition to these final tests, how are we supposed to know if we've done it wrong? I just think about when they were doing it to me at behind Wildcat Stadium. She was like, all right, I'm just going to stick this up here and swirl it around. And I was like, okay. So I think that is also going to be a challenge for students who are weird with stuff like that. If people already don't like having a Q-tip shoved up their nose, which I don't think there are many people who like that, how are they going to be able to administer it to themselves?
Yeah. And I know a lot of professional sports teams and different conglomerates and stuff have had a lot of false positives. So if that affects a university like us, it'll probably create a downfall pretty fast, because if there's one, it'll probably be multiple. So if that affects us negatively and we have to go home because of that, it's gonna be tough. But it's all has to do with where the tests are being administered. So I don't think there'll be that much of a problem, but we'll have to see.
I also feel like the flip side of that is I worry about false negatives. I feel like that's almost more likely. Say someone just, grazes the surface and then says they're negative when they're really positive. I obviously am not a science person, but I worry a lot about us doing this ourselves and there being sort of, not, like you're saying, Hannah, no knowledge if we're doing it completely correctly, and how that could kind of affect the results and test results we're getting.
I think also just watching universities across the country open within the past week and close within a few days, I think that it was North Carolina that closed within a few days. You see everything going on with NYU's quarantine housing, and just things like off-campus partying. I don't remember what university was in the limelight about that, but it's very concerning. That with all of this stuff that could potentially happen, we have to test ourselves.
Yeah.
You're putting your trust in people who know nothing about administering tests besides it's probably not going to be longer than 10-minute session to learn how to stick the Q-tip up your nose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and from who I've talked to that's involved with Greek life, I think they're pretty like accepting of what the reality is. I know a couple like vice presidents of fraternities, and both of them have said we're going to comply, and there's not going to be any parties or anything. So that's good to hear. I don't know if I believe that, but it's yet to be seen. So hopefully they'll comply. But as you've said, college students are college students. So it's probably not if, it's when. So hopefully we can make it through these 12 weeks. So another email that Chief Paul Dean sent out today, August 24th, was about the initial testing results from UNH's pre-arrival testing. And he basically outlined that it hasn't been, a ton of student results. It's been a lot of faculty and staff because, students were kind of instructed to get a test within 8 days of arrival. So there's been some students on this kind of report, but not a ton. And he kind of emphasized that there's going to be no personal data shared. There's going to be, no breach of confidentiality or anything like that. But there will be results released twice a week, at least for now, and maybe more in the future. And so just to kind of give you guys an outline of what the results have been like, is there's been 8 positive student tests, 3 faculty, and 12 staff positives. And there's been around 8,500 total tests administered, and that's not people, that's tests. So some people have gotten tested multiple times. And the tests have gone up because people have been coming onto campus, and the positives have been going down. So that's a good sign. So as we get into all the student tests in the next week or so before classes start, and it'll be a better gauge for when students come in this coming week to see if positive and negative tests will arise or not. So we'll post all the results as well as UNH posting them, and we'll have a link on our website and on our Twitter as well. So you guys will be able to see how the rise and fall of the tests are going.
I'm super interested to see, it would probably be, I would guess, the next batch of results that includes all of the testing that's been done the last week or so. I would imagine it's definitely thousands of students in the last couple weeks. And I also wanted to note that students who test outside of the UNH facilities, the Wildcat Stadium, are supposed to upload their results from the outside provider to UNH. So I think that's a really important step, just kind of getting, like Josh said, getting a gauge of how many people have it before we even start, before everyone's back together.
And also in his email, Chief Paul Dean said that all the results that they posted today were all from the Convenient MD pre-arrival testing, and it wasn't from the Quest testing that was done on out of New England, students. So I'm sure those will be coming in the next week with all the arrival testing at the Whittemore Center. And he also mentioned that the results are going to be reported to the New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services, which they mentioned before, as well as UNH kind of taking that information in and relaying it to the population, the Seacoast population, and the parents and everyone involved.
Today, August 24th, New Hampshire Congressman Chris Pappas took a visit to UNH and attended a roundtable with UNH senior leadership to discuss UNH's reopening plans. So he and President Jim Dean, Vice President Chris Clement, Senior Vice Provost Marianne McCord, and Chief Paul Dean discussed the reopening plans and any questions that Chris Pappas had for the leadership. They discussed potential loss in revenue due to the $30 million deficit because of refunds of dining and housing for spring semester, as well as the Huron report, and the cost of testing that has been incurred. They also talked about international students. Congressman Pappas was expressing some concern, just wanting to know what the status was. And President Jim Dean said that many of them have been with us since March. And for those students who did get to go home, some may not be able to come back just due to their own country's rules. But it is a bit of a challenge for new international students. Let's see. They also talked about the impact on student life and what they've done to make sure that is still going to be as normal as possible. From talking about the reduction of size in groups, and according to Chief Dean, who said, we've crafted a plan that is amazingly flexible, but it's going to be safe for students. So just making sure that life is as normal as possible, but that they're still holding students accountable who fail to adhere to the policy. And then they also discussed the university's relationship with the town, and how it's been strong. Town Administrator Todd Selig, and they are meeting with him weekly and his team. They're doing an exceptional job. And President Dean has been watching and learning from other schools across the country, just seeing, with their reopening, how it's going, how some are opening and closing down 3 days later or having quarantine issues. And that they have, demonstrated that we can safely conduct everything due to our extensive testing requirements and our social distancing protocols. And then there was also discussion about the emphasis on research and how that money has been kind of taken away and focus has been taken away from research due to the coronavirus pandemic, and that in the future, Marion McCord really hopes that we get money more put into that so that they can resume research efforts. As the state's flagship research university, they want to make sure that they're still getting as much research done as possible, and if they're still being safe while doing that. And they want to make sure that that money isn't being taken out of their future budgets. Congressman Pappas was saying he supports the flexibility in funding. But yeah, all around a really great visit from Congressman Pappas, and it's showing the state's relationship with the university in making sure that there is health, safety, and well-being of students is their top priority.
Yeah, what I found interesting from what kind of transpired today was the relationship with the town aspect, because in prior emails, I believe Chief Paul Dean said that the police relationship with the town of Durham and the UNH police, they haven't really kind of jived that much and communicated that much. So I wonder if that infers that they've started to do that more, because obviously the town has a lot to do with the police department, so maybe those go hand in hand. But I think the only way for this to work is for both of them to work synergistically, because if the town obviously has the mask ordinance, but if they're I believe that they have mentioned that a lot of the the fines and stuff aren't going to be administered as much to UNH students. It's going to be UNH police is going to handle this, and we're going to kind of hand it off to them. So hopefully they can work together well. From what it sounded like today, I believe they will. And, I think that's probably one of the most important parts that they covered.
I think that we're going to see this sort of roundtable format a lot in the coming weeks, just because I think it's kind of, I would say, comforting, reassuring for people to know, like we're talking about, that the university is in contact with the town, is in contact with our congressperson in the U.S. House, in the New Hampshire House. I think that sort of public show of, we've talked about this, we've discussed this, let's discuss it in front of people and take their questions. I think that's going to be super crucial this semester, just because of how much is unknown even by those people. So I think it's a really awesome way to kind of kickstart the semester, and I hope we see more of that.
Yeah, and I think that the university has learned that, along with everyone involved, because they've been working obviously super hard over this summer to get this get the campus ready for all of us to come back. but maybe the communication aspect wasn't where it should have been to let us know, what they were doing. And, in the last couple weeks or months, they put out emails and, with the consent and informed consent agreement, and they've gotten backlash and they're like, oh, we don't know about this, and this. I think they've really put forth, their best effort to be communicative and, informative to the public and, the UNH community. So I think you're totally right. I think we're going to see more, roundtable type things or, type conversations and more, innovative ways to kind of share information with us. So, yeah.
Yeah, as someone who was in attendance, like, it was a very interesting style to see. It was very conversation based, and I really liked, how invested Congressman Pappas was. He was really wanting to make sure that everything was being addressed and that that UNH is performing to the best of its ability. He truly cared about what we were doing in terms of reopening plans, and it was, like I said, conversation based. Information. It wasn't like question and answer. It was a discussion. It was something where everything can be laid out on the table and made sure that we're all on the same page.
So the university recently kind of laid out their plans for Wildcat Days this year, which traditionally happen for new students kind of as they move in the first few days. A lot of colleges do it, I think, just to kind of get students acclimated to campus life and activities and kind of get them feeling comfortable. So anyways, obviously it's going to look a little different this year. So what I noticed looking through the schedule, which is available just on their UNH new student webpage, there's some kind of in-person events that I'm imagining will be with masks and social distancing when possible. And then there's also some virtual options. So it really seems like they're kind of catering to what people's comfort level is. And there's things that are more like game-based, like lawn games and video games and things like that. And then there's also more school or that sort of related things like tours of the campus. There's opportunities to register to vote, which everyone should do. So there's just really a whole mix of different things. So it looks like it'll be fun, different, but definitely fun.
So the Wildcat Days schedule is definitely jam-packed with events. You really cannot be bored all weekend. They have things going on at all times, virtual options and in person. One thing, there were some events on there that we were kind of discussing that we have no idea how they can do these socially distant. They have things like a spike ball tournament. They have mini golf, which can be done socially distant, but just things like spike ball or like lawn games, that was a little bit questionable. I'd love to see how they're going to do it. I'm actually really looking forward to hearing about it and seeing, photos. But I honestly feel like this is the most jam-packed Wildcat Days we've seen in a while.
Yeah, I think that they're trying to kind of compensate for, all the orgs being, kind of
Dismantled.
Dismantled. Yeah, that's the right word. And there's not going to be as many in-person meetings and stuff like that. So I think that there's going to be, intermittent activities like this throughout the semester. It's not just going to be Wildcat Days. And that's kind of been our main concern throughout doing these podcasts the last, 5 or 6 weeks, is how are students going to get acclimated to the university, especially new students. I feel like, UNH is doing everything possible with, with mini golf, with even video game like tournaments and stuff like that. You can meet people through like not being in person. So I think those are great ideas. So hopefully the process of students coming in and meeting people these first couple of weeks isn't going to be as bad as we thought. But I really feel like these first couple of days and first couple of weeks are crucial, because I know when I came in, that's when you make friends. Because if you don't make friends the first couple of weeks, usually people have their own group that they stuck with. So I think they're doing the best that they can, and with limited resources, because they aren't really allowed to do a ton of this stuff, to do a ton of stuff that will aid in that. So
So a great new addition that's come to campus actually opened today. It is M&L Boutique. This is their second location. It is on Madbury Road, right next to I think it's called Local Bar. And you can go in there starting today to check out the clothing that they offer. And you will be able to see a story later this week on their opening. Thanks for tuning in to episode 6 of TNH Roundup. You can find us on all social platforms at New Hampshire. That's Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. And if you have any comments or questions or anything you'd like us to address, you can contact us at tnhstaff@gmail.com, and we will see you next week.